Это главный храм, который символизирует собой слияние церкви, государства. Это ненормальная вещь.
Mike, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
I'd like to start by asking you how you came about starting to make Pussy Riot, a punk prayer.
Yeah, well, back in January last year, pictures of Pussy Riot began appearing in the British press in particular, and I've spent my life making films about art and politics, and these guys seem to embody the perfect blend of those two subjects. So, and then upon reading of their arrest, of course, we just knew we had to make a film about these guys, and so just went to Moscow and started the process. Of course, didn't know how long that would take, and kept thinking, well, they're not going to go through with this trial, surely, and then of course they did. And then so we follow the events up to the middle of October, up to the final verdict and the appeal, and then we rush back, in fact, to New York to furiously cut the film in time for Sundance, which was January. So the whole thing was, in fact, exactly a year, the whole process, but it was quite a year.
Quite a year.
Yeah.
Now, this was a story that went viral. It was all over the internet, but for anyone who was under some kind of domestic rock, can you tell me a bit of a background to what happened?
Yeah, well, Pussy Riot are a feminist punk collective of performance artists who stage unsanctioned performances around Moscow in order to raise certain political points. And they got away with this up to a point. After over a sort of 6-month period, they'd done various actions in Red Square, is a particularly famous one in front of the Kremlin. And as I say, largely they got away with it until February, I think the 21st, where they staged this action in Moscow's central cathedral, Christ the Saviour Cathedral, where they performed for about 40 seconds something they call the punk prayer, which is essentially a protest song about the involvement of Putin and the church and the role of women in the church and the general misogyny and sexism that the Orthodox Church represents. And they make their video, they post it online. Subsequently, they're arrested for this action and then subsequently charged with the crime of hooliganism motivated by religious hatred. They then stand trial, they then get convicted, and they end up with 2-year sentences for three of the participants, Nadia, Masha and Katya. Katya is subsequently released, early release after appeal, so 2 of them remain in jail, in fact in penal colonies in the middle of Russia, and Katya is free at the moment and working to try and get them released early, which so far hasn't been a possibility.
What do you think the rest of the world has discovered about Russia off the back of Pussy Riot?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think people can characterize Russia as becoming more like China, more like Iran, more like North Korea. I mean, in fact, it isn't. I mean, I think these actions are an exaggeration of its totalitarian instincts, which are there, no doubt. So it's. I think we learn that perhaps the Putin regime is a lot more insecure than perhaps they would like to signal. I think all this aggression towards any form of protest, and Pussy Riot in particular, shows their nervousness. I mean, I would say they protest too much about what is clearly not the most aggressive of threats. I mean, the Orthodox Church is not under attack in Russia. Putin, I don't think, has a lot to fear from a group of feminist performance artists. I mean, they're raising questions and they're attempting to draw people's attention towards inequality and gender inequality and certain injustices, but they're not waging war against the country, which is in a way how they've reacted. So I think that's what we learn, is they're a lot more nervous and insecure than we might think they were.
We've covered the story now. I want to ask you whether you had any difficulty, any pressure to, as far as what you would cover in the film.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say yes, we really struggled and suffered, but actually the answer is it was incredibly straightforward and quite simple. In fact, we had journalist accreditation, so we had access to the courts and we were certainly unimpeded in anything we were doing. And indeed, we were very lucky in as much as the state did make a decision to film the trial, which as filmmakers was like the best news you could possibly have heard. And not only film it really well, it was beautifully shot, film moments before the trial starts. In the film you have these wonderful moments where the 3 women come together actually for the first time because they're being held separately. So they come together after months of being apart, and obviously they've got lots to say to each other, and we overhear this and we hear and see this. So it's great, intimate and telling moment in the film. So yeah, all this was done by under the sanction of the state. So, and we managed to acquire that footage, and there we go. And really, in a way, the three women turn their court appearance into a performance itself, and in a way they're playing to the camera as much as to the judge, if you like. So
yeah.
Another way in which they've managed to control this whole story and use it to their advantage. It's extraordinary.
Finally, how do you think this is going to go down in Russia?
Well, we do have the opportunity to show the film later in the year in a film festival in Moscow. I mean, we'll see. I mean, technically parts of the film have been declared illegal because the cathedral video itself has been declared an extremist video, so, and the film contains many clips of it, so technically the film is already in trouble before it starts. But well, let's see. I mean, obviously it's still a very provocative story. One of the reasons we made the film was, in fact, to try and show the people of Russia that Pussy Riot are not foreign agents. They're not agents provocateurs. They are actually patriotic, well-meaning, rational people who simply want to improve the social and political conditions of their country. And so I hope we do get to show the film more widely in Russia, because I do think the film really demonstrates that. And Pussy Riot have been misunderstood. During the course of the trial, there were countless television programs and documentaries about how evil Pussy Riot were and how they're simply there to undermine the country. So they've been fed all that propaganda. I'm not saying our film is an alternative piece of propaganda, but hopefully it will give a more balanced view of who they are and what they hope to achieve. I think that would be a very good thing to achieve. So we'll see.
Почувствуйте с нами запах свободы.